you not entertained?
Yes, sir! We'll have a real good time!
He's Dave, and I'm Dallas, and this is Vintertainment. We have opinions on just about everything. Sometimes those opinions are spot on. Sometimes they go down easier with a glass of wine. This is Vintertainment, the wine and entertainment pairing podcast.
Welcome back to another wine and entertainment pairing for your Vintertainment. At least pairing wine with entertainment is what we normally do on this show, but today's episode is one of our Vinterviews, where we interview a special guest from the world of either wine or entertainment, and today's guest hails from an intersection of both. As always, I'm Dave, an ex-entertainment industry professional that has been working in wine for the past 2 years.
And I'm Dallas, a professional writer and world builder.
And joining us today is Matt Battaglia. Matt is an executive producer and has directed such award-winning documentaries as Off the Grid, All We Have, and The Free Life. He has also somehow managed a career in comics, which began with being a colorist for Boom Studios and the comic Roche Limit at Image Comics. He collaborated with author Michael Morrissey for their book Indoctrination at Z2 Comics, and he now creates solo work, including his graphic novella, Ghosts of the Carousel, which was published by Dauntless Stories in 2020, and his debut graphic novel, House on Fire, which was released in 2023 from publisher Living the Line Books, and which I have a copy of right here. And it's great, folks. Go check out House on Fire from Living the Line. This is one I highly recommend. And most recently, Matt has directed a short documentary feature on Georgian wine, The Red Line, Where Wine is Freedom, which is now on YouTube, and which is the first part of a longer feature documentary. And it is this short doc that Matt is here to talk with us about today. So, Matt, welcome to the show, and how does it feel to be releasing this doc into the world, at least this short version of the doc?
It's exciting, and I'm so happy you guys are having me on to talk about it. When I was filming it, I was thinking about your show as like the perfect people to send it to, because the Georgian wine, the whole story was such a interesting thing to dig into, and the people that we profiled for this. The short one focuses on the Pipari Valley winery in Georgia, and all of the wineries we profiled were in the Kakheti region. So right. It was very exciting to go there to film it, and anytime you make a film, a documentary, it's you're working on this thing in secret for so long, and then you finally get to release it. And usually, unless if you go and screen it, if it's going online like this is, getting feedback is something that's you want, and so it's nice to talk to you guys about it. It was nice to share it with you. So.
Absolutely. Well, welcome on to the show. And now, before we go deeper, it should be noted that the views and opinions expressed by the production company Free the People do not reflect those views of Vintertainment or its hosts. While the feature documentary that we're going to be talking about today includes content we believe to be relevant and valuable to our discussion on the history and culture of wine, its inclusion in this episode does not imply endorsement of any political, ideological, or organized viewpoints held by its creators. That said, Matt, I know that you're not a big fat wine dork like we are per se, but kick us off by telling us, how would you describe your relationship to wine both before and now after filming this doc?
I love drinking it before. My wife and I, whenever we travel, we do go on. We try to do some wine tourism. So we went to Barcelona, and we went to the Priorat region, which was fantastic. And when we were in Italy, we went to we did like a big Tuscan wine tour, which was great. That was wonderful. So I love wine. I just my vocabulary for my palate is limited. I can say, and this was something I really appreciated with the Georgian relationship with wine, especially in the documentary. Ketty talks about it. Is that her like palate is I like this, I don't like it, and that's it, and that's sort of how my brain works on wine. And I think that the other. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to jump in.
Yeah. Yes, jump in, please. Sorry.
Sorry, we have a little bit of a lag time because we're doing this all remotely. So forgive us, guys. We'll probably edit all this and it'll be seamless in the end. But just in case it's not, that's what's happening. I just wanted to jump in and say one of our new opening lines is, "We know what we like, but we rarely know why." And that's a big part of what we explore on the show. So yes, please continue.
For sure. And the other thing that I think is great with wine, and especially when you start going to wineries and really the smaller ones, and everyone that we profiled for this documentary, they're all like smaller family run wineries, is that it's very much a product of passion in a way that like where when you go you're sort of in someone's home in a way. It's not often that people live there, although one of the wineries we went to, Ardenuli, is run by a father and his daughter, and the dad, it's their house is there too. Like, so that was very, the dad lives there on the winery, and that was cool. So they're really sharing an art in a way that other liquors don't always have. You know what I mean? Like, you don't, and especially in Georgia, their whole relationship with wine is very much an art and it's like a life thing. It's very different than the way it's treated here. So
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's very family oriented, especially when I think the land is all been like owned by certain families for long periods of time. This feels very old world versus new world in a lot of ways. One of the reasons that they often state that old world wine these days can be more affordable than new world wine, like American wine, is because they've just owned the land for so bloody long. Like, it's just the overhead costs are so much lower than all these new regions where it's like, we're doing it, but we're starting, and the costs involved are crazy. So you might be spending $60 for a not as good bottle of wine as you can get for $30 coming out of Europe from these regions where they've just been doing it for so bloody long that it's like, when we watch the documentary, they go a lot into the Quervi traditional method, which are these ceramic pots buried underground, which is where the wine ages. And it's like, originally getting all that in place is not cheap, and making the Quervi and transporting them and whatnot is like, that all had overhead costs at some point. But once you've got it set up, you're like, now we're set. Now we've got our whole situation ready to go, and now we just make wine year in.
I think the other thing you can't discount is the fact that this is sort of a nationalistic kind of persona as well. Their history with wine goes back probably longer than just about further than anyone else's history with wine. I know in my last sort of rabbit hole, the claims are 3,000 years. Sometimes you can hear a 6,000 thrown out there. So the idea that this is not just a sort of a familial lineage, but a cultural lineage and a national lineage, you realize that everyone has a connection to this wine, be it medicinal, be it sort of political, be it, the sort of romantic notions of their family. And so it makes sense that it is revered in this really accessible way. That's one of the things that's, I guess, I appreciate about their connection to wine, the Georgian connection to wine, is that it does seem like this really accessible, fine expression and like condensation of their culture that is still made today and served and rejoiced in. So that alone, I definitely have a sweet spot for wine culture in and around Georgia.
It's well, and so one of the things that I thought, one of the reasons we made the doc is that that whole culture was gone for such a long time, and so when Georgia was under the Soviet Union, they almost lost all of it. And one of the things that is discussed in the doc is how the Georgian peasant with the Cuervi in his front yard is the guy who, those are the families that saved the preserve that culture. And
the method,
and
sorry,
so
go
that was
ahead.
very cool.
The method of wine, that particular method of winemaking, as you said, they did sort of, it did extend into the individual's daily life. And so being able to have those Cuervi in your backyard, hidden, that's the beautiful thing about, a winemaking method that is primarily done underground. Is like, you can maintain these recipes and these cultures, and you can stow them away, and they kind of end up making their way through the passage of time, more than other cultures because of that very peculiar and very specific method of winemaking. Now, you said something here, Matt. I'm actually curious as to what led you guys to focus on Georgian wine. Did you come in through the idea of the sort of the political backdrop, or was it purely an interest in this culture of winemaking or commerce? How did we get there?
Well, so I will say my boss is a huge wine geek, and he's been obsessed with Georgian wines for quite a while. And he's wanted us to go film something, and so he the Papari Valley one was one where it's like, okay, the story's here. Like you have generational, the son is working with the parents, and we just sort of, this had been kicking around for a while. Obviously the Soviet Union, sort of this story about, this, what you can lose when you are under duress and under like dictatorships, and the idea of trying to bring your culture back after that is something that I think is very salient for everybody of any political stripe. So a lot of the documentaries that we produce are trying to find these human interest stories that highlight the human need to be free and to be able to produce and create what you're passionate about. So I think that the Georgian story really hits on all of that, and we found a few really great wineries that I think inhabit that being. And recently there have been a number of other pieces that have come out. 60 Minutes put out like a thing, like they did a feature on Georgian wine.
I think that aired last month or 2 months ago. Yeah.
At least the one that I saw, it wasn't like it didn't. I feel like we covered it a little bit differently. I think that, and I hope that these changes are, illustrate this vibrant culture that these people have, and hopefully people can watch it and maybe take some sort of lessons to heart. The Georgians are currently going through more political unrest, and there is a cycle, and so all of those things kind of go together. I mean, when filming documentary, my primary goal is to present the subjects as they present themselves. I don't. Yeah. I hate when you feel like someone's been coached up or something like that. I try, and so generally speaking, I just want people to tell their story, and I want to present it as truthfully and as artfully as possible. Added difficulty of the language barrier, but
of course. I mean, I think it comes through, like the family does. It is like you're just following them around. They seem to be speaking very honestly and heartfeltly, and just like, this is what we do. This is our life. This is how we go about it. Which is a, Georgian wine. I'm going to talk a little bit to our listeners a little bit more about Georgian wine at the very end, because I have my own side sister story to the Georgian plight of wine, that something I just experienced this past weekend. But I'm going to circle back to that in just a little bit. But yes, I do think that this documentary in particular, it's very straightforward. It's very just showing what this one particular family is and what they're doing. and what they had to go through to get back to this point in terms of the history of their country. Now, tell us, before we get a little deeper into this documentary in particular, because you have a few different facets to your own creative endeavors, tell our listeners, give an overview of your career as a graphic novelist, producer, and director. Which came first, and how did these inform one another? Because that's a fascinating little array.
Yeah, I mean, I've been drawing comics for forever. As far as the film stuff goes, technically my degree is in film, so
okay.
It's a Rutgers degree, so I'm not sure how much worth it has, but
about as much as the rest of them, honestly.
But I started doing more of all of the, more of this stuff in earnest when I began working with Free the People. So I did always dabble, but I found that the thing that always kept me from doing film on my own is just you have to work with with other people a lot, and the thing that I love about comics is that you can just do it by yourself. But the two I think the two really do inform one another, because I feel like when you're drawing comics, you really learn how to think about pacing, think about sort of staging a scene, and how much information do I need to get people from A to B to C.
Yeah, right.
And like even when I edit, and my I should mention one of my best friends from growing up, Matt Antonucci, was DP and edited this film, and came out there with me, so it was a fun friend bonding experience. But towards the end of it, we were ready to kill each other.
That's how it happens.
That's filmmaking.
That is filmmaking,
Especially on a budget, right?
Yeah, and especially after 10 days, you're like, okay, I need a break
on the road, right?
But like the way that we I did a story cut, and then he kind of did all the finishing work on the edit. But the way that I think of it is I think of this is a block, this is another block. I know I need something here, just to slot in that fixes the pace. So this is the footage I want in this scene, but this is sort of where we need to, this is kind of what we need to say visually. So I do think comics helps a lot with that thought process. And then the film side influences, I approach comics as an editor now, where I do layouts digitally, and I can move pages around, delete pages, add pages if something's not if I feel like, that beat needs more time, in the same way that you would work with in film. So I do think both languages are similar, and they kind of feed off of one another. So
okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's definitely overlap. I think. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say one last thing, was that when everyone talks about comics as cinematic, they're always thinking just wide format panels, and that's not.
Right. Yeah,
that's missing the point.
It's its own art form. It's its own format. There's so much. They work very differently, but they are a visual. One's visual audio, one's visual textual. So you can see the connection between them, but they are. When another Substacker that we probably both of us follow is Aubrey Sitterson, right? Who's lately been talking a lot about take the medium itself for what it is, what it can do versus what film can do, and that's where comics truly live and die. That's where they sing. Versus just trying to replicate film. It's okay, but you're just taking snapshots of a film and putting them in a book and saying, flip the pages, and how exciting can that really be? Let's maybe take it a little further than that. Yeah.
Yeah. So real quick, Matt, I want to move into a bit of the pre-production, specifically how you guys narrowed down the regions and the winemakers.
I will say that my boss did a couple of trips over to Georgia and had talked to these winemakers, and that was how. So he gave me sort of a sampling of these are the people that we can choose from, basically. And then it was the decisions were, well, like who represents what in our story, and how will they slot in. So Papari Valley obviously is the people that were profiling this first short, and they are very much they're I'm blanking on the grape name right now, but they're red.
Saperavi.
Yes, thank you. Their Saperavi is, like
that's what we're here for.
Is a perfect, but it is a perfect representation of that grape. I mean, it is a big, bold red, and I will tell you, we filmed with them the first day. And that night they kept opening bottle after bottle after
there
bottle.
You go.
And the second day I was so hungover.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
And I think they probably didn't feel a thing.
No. Can I just say my tolerance in the last couple of years, like I have always been a lightweight. I never drank that much in my youth. I wasn't into wine until about 10 years ago. So it was very like later in life that I even got into that. And 2 glasses of wine would just like do me in. Like I usually was a 1 glass of wine a night person. And now that I've been working in wine the last 2 years, especially, I never used it. Like when I first started working in wine, I'm like, I'm not going to spit the wine. What are you, crazy? And now I'm like, oh God, to survive, I need to spit all this wine. This is crazy. You can't stop people giving you wine if you actually fall into this world where the winemaking happens and the wine selling and the wine retail. And you're just like, you're never at a loss for it. But also my tolerance, frankly, I've noticed now I can drink like 3-4 glasses in a row, and I'm like, how am I not feeling it? This is I'm like, this is dangerous. This is not okay.
I will tell you, just one funny comment is we worked with a Georgian film crew there as well, because it was just Matt and I from on the crew end, and the sound op. The second a bottle of wine appeared and a corkscrew showed up, the sound op was like on the spot.
Game.
Cracked that bottle open, started drinking immediately, and the sound was all great.
That's right.
Like, but
That's right.
But he was just.
This was his perk for doing this, right?
Exactly.
This is why I showed up today. God damn it!
And then once he got after it, like no one's glass was empty. So it was like very much there was a crash course in how do you function in Georgia as not a Georgian. And if you did not have your wine tolerance up, you were going to struggle.
That is the beauty of this kind of filmmaking, actually. As you just said, it's essentially pre-existing relationships that you sort of just capitalize on. And I'm curious, for the full feature, it's 4 different wineries, correct? Because in the first one, it's just the intro of the first one. And is it
this one?
4 distinct?
Yeah.
Yes, this one. Is it 4 distinct regions, or are we splitting up between the 2 primary regions?
They're all in all in the Kakheti region, and I will tell you. So the other wineries that we profiled are Ardenuli, which is the father and daughter one, and they do some really interesting things. She has a number of like, I don't want to call them blends, but she does like some weird stuff where she'll put white grapes and red skins in there, and it drinks so good. Like that was such a good wine. And then the dad does more traditional stuff, but so their wines were great. And
generational, that makes sense. That's how it always works. The kid comes in and is like, "Well, I'm not doing what my dad does." So,
look at the Coppolas. Look at the Coppolas for a primary example of that, right?
Well, and their whole the vibe was very hippie there, right? And like so, it was a wild sort of scene comparatively. And then the other sort of main one that we went to was Zangura, and what Mayrabu does over there is that his main focus is he's trying to find and restore all the lost grape varieties in Georgia.
Cool. Yeah.
So like through the Soviet period, they lost a lot of the grapes because everything got torn up, et cetera, et cetera. So his focal point is I basically have just rows and rows of this, like just all these varieties. So And then we went to Iago winery, which was closer to Tbilisi, so I don't know if really in Kakheti, but his wines were he has more like award-winning stuff, and he had a pet knot that was very good, and so he's going to be more like a supporting cast guy.
Okay.
So, but Ardinuli, Papari, and Zingara are sort of the three leads, and then Iago is sort of a supporter.
Cool.
But to go back to the previous thing, like that's sort of also how they all are kind of gonna. That's their roles. Is like Ardinuli is like this new age style. Zingara is the I am resuscitating the grapes, and Iago is like the trying to bring Georgian wines back to sort of the a sort of international stage where they really belong. And if it weren't, for the fact that they disappeared for a while, they probably would be talked about in the same breath as other wines.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Very
100%.
nice.
So,
and just on as a side note to the white wine with red skins and whatnot, that is actually, so it's funny. I work for a winery here in LA called the Blending Lab, and we did a rosé once where it was like the juice of white grapes, and then we took Triga Nacional, which is the grape predominantly used for port, and threw that into that to make a rosé version where it was mix and match. And even blending red and white wines is common in some places of the world. Portugal does it all the time. Chianti used to be the primary, Chianti used to always be at least some decent proportion of white wine in with the red wine, and they outlawed that in the modern era where they're like, no longer, now Chianti is a red wine, screw that. And it's a shame because it is really good. They make white and red together make such great balances to wine. I'm with you there.
It was so easy to drink. I mean,
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
that is the other thing.
Sorry, go ahead, Dallas.
That is the other thing about these sort of traditions that have these sort of familial kind of traditions of winemaking, is you really are making it for the palate of the people in your home, in your neighborhood, in your region. And that kind of just gets condensed over time until you get to the point where almost every glass is just really drinkable and fantastic and good and easy drinking, as we like to say. So makes sense.
Yep. And a quick little side note of wine education for all our listeners there, orange wine we have Georgia to thank for the fact that orange wine came back to the rest of us. Most of us think of it as a newfangled thing in the modern era, but it's not. It's very old. It's very traditional. It is, in fact, what we think is likely the oldest form of wine known to man, because so what orange wine is, for those of you who aren't aware, it is actually soaking the juice on white skins of the grapes, just like making a red wine, so for weeks to months, where they're just going to soak on those skins and extract all the pigment, the tannins, the aromas, the flavors, and you're going to get a wine that can be similar in certain structural ways to a red wine. Very different flavor profiles, of course, because different kinds of juice, different kinds of skins, but orange wine is, from what we think we know of old ancient man, white skin grapes were the first wine grapes we ever cultivated. We didn't have the technology to separate the skins from the juice, so that would have been the OG wine that we ever made, is orange wine. And from what we think we understand, is it basically fell out of fashion with refrigeration coming into play, and then of course non-skin contact white wine. It's much better when you have refrigeration. If you've ever tried a room temperature white wine, not always the best experience. So that just grew in popularity with refrigeration in the late 1800s. And post-World Wars, Georgia fell, back behind. All the countries that were making orange wine still went under Soviet rule. The Soviets wanted quantity over quality, and they needed wine to be pumped out fast. And skin contact, just like if you think about red wine, it takes longer to make. You got to soak it for much longer, then you have to age it for a little bit, sometimes in oak, sometimes in clay, sometimes in stone, whatever it is. It takes longer before you can release it, and the Soviets were like, nope, not doing that anymore. And it was clean white wine, if even that. In the documentary, you mentioned how it became a brandy and cognac territory for a little while. So Yeah, and then it was when they came out from under the Iron Curtain and the traditional orange wine making methods came back. Immigrants from Georgia went off into Italy and shocked the hell out of everyone by suddenly starting to make. They tasted the Italian whites and were like, "What is this shit? This has no flavor to it. What is it?" And then they started making their orange wine, and then the Italians were like, "What is this shit?" And then of course history had to come back to us a little slowly. It'd been like 50 years since the rest of the world had remembered that this was a thing. And here we are today. So that was your little bit of wine history for both there in terms of Georgian wine.
That's great. And it all links back to the Cuervi, because that's why, once
That's
you seal
right.
the Cuervi, you ain't going in there and getting the skins out. Like,
Yes.
it's sealed.
You're right. It's sealed, and you have to walk down into the Cuervi, right? Like that is how you get into the Cuervi.
Yeah. By the way, one of the I'm currently working on a project which features a Cuervi, and it's always amazing to see someone having to clean one of the top tier ones, because you very easily get stuck in one of those. So
So how long was for the full feature? How long was the filming process for the whole thing?
We were there for 10 days. We're debating on whether I mean, we probably will ask. We might get some more B-roll from the crew.
Do some research. Yeah. Some pickups, whatever you want to call them.
Would love to go back out there to get some pickups, but I think we filmed with the idea of sort of making a feature. So, we have plenty of stuff. So we're working on that, and I'm putting that together. But I feel like Papari's story was just a tight,
little window into
line.
the whole thing. Yeah,
and just to get sort of see are people interested in learning more about it, and hopefully they are. So we're working on the edit on that, and I would love to go back. It's so hard though to even for people in the US to travel there. You have to do like a 24-hour layover in I think like Zurich or something. Wherever, somewhere in Germany. You have to do a layover, and all of the flights into Georgia and out of Georgia arrive at like 4 a.m. or something like that. Georgian time, which is tough.
Yes.
But it was wonderful. The one thing the one thing that I feel like I watched, like Bourdain went to Georgia at one point for one episode of one of his shows, and I watched, there was another documentary, and I'm blanking on the name, also about Georgian wine, and I will say the one thing that I struggled with when watching these other documentaries was Georgians have this tradition of the supra, right? They have a dinner and toast, and they drink a bunch of wine. And anytime I've seen it filmed, it is the corniest damn thing. It just doesn't seem.
It seems very staged, and I've seen a lot of a number.
And so I just was like, we don't need film crew doing a supra, and so we're at the Yago winery, and we're hanging out. It's the last day, and so we're hanging out with the Georgian film crew, and wine is flowing, and there's food, and they're having like a sort of a little supra, and people are doing the toast, and it's heartfelt and real, and I'm looking at the cameras, and I know that we cut, and I'm like, damn it. But it wouldn't appear that way on camera. It wouldn't feel real. It would feel fake, and
probably not as much.
Well, I think I will say, in the clip that is already out, there is a moment when they are all three toasting, and you can tell that there's so much sort of undertone there. There's a culture there, because the father and the son clinked, then the mom and the mom and the son clinked, and she corrected him, and then he went back in, and there was a sort of subtle smile, and there was a sort of back and forth where clearly this could have gone on much longer. So I think you did some I think you got it in there subconsciously. So
But yeah, that was the one thing that like is on the cutting room floor, and it doesn't feel real on camera. you know, because
okay.
I can see that.
they're very. And it was surprising when I got home and finally got all the translations for all the Georgian interviews. So I didn't have someone translate it in the moment when people gave answers in Georgian. I just assumed that they answered the question.
That's interesting. You're like, I hope that sounded smart. Yay.
Well,
because that's what we filmed.
You know how you end up with it in edit is one, you have someone trying to translate and then they're speaking on top of the other person.
Yes.
And then that's a nightmare to edit. And it just doesn't sound right. And so it's just like, and everyone was way more poetic than I would have assumed. You know, it was very heartfelt, and I
well, it's amazing. It's curious you say that because the mom, you know, when she mentioned that her background was screenwriting.
Yep.
And she also was definitely curating the shots a bit there when they were sitting, and you left a little of that in. I don't think the average person may not notice it, but she was definitely sort of curating the moment there and trying to get them to say certain things and be as poetic as possible, because at the end of the day, it is a marketing tool and device as well. So why not take advantage of it? I get it.
Precisely.
So, solid there.
Yeah.
So any other crazy behind-the-scenes stories outside of your lush of a sound guy? Was there any other fun stories that should be told?
There's always one on
for
the
our
crew.
listeners
Always
here?
one on the crew.
We had a fantastic driver, also named Mayrab. Mayrab seems to be a popular Georgian name.
There you go.
And young dude loved like 90s hip hop. So we were jamming on that, and had this great like off-road van that he that Matt and I rode around with him in that. And at one point, we're getting some shot of like there were like sheep, you know, they're sheep herding everywhere.
Yep.
And Mayrab sees the sheepdogs, and he's like, "That's going to get the shot." And Mayrab's like, "Look, if the dog comes for you, I'll like jump out and get him. You know, I'll take care of it." It's like, dude, we can just stay in the car. We got a zoom lens. It's okay. It was funny. He was just a very cool dude, and just all the people there were wonderful. I did go to a comic shop in Georgia when I was in.
Nice.
What was that like?
And you know, every time I travel, I go into comic shop and usually try to find some sort of like indie, you know, stuff.
Right.
And 90% of what they had was in English, and I was like, "What is this?"
God damn it!
right.
I didn't buy this. I ended up buying a copy of Nausicaa because I don't have it. It's just like, fine.
It's funny.
So there was a single Georgian comic in the entire place. Come on.
They didn't have
You
one.
know,
It was like, they had a diamond account.
Okay. That's true.
Well, and I think some cultures, you know, if comics are one of those things where it's like a lot of things from other countries are going to be relatively new to countries that are, you know, like Georgia, where it's like now their borders are open. Now they're able to take this stuff in, but it's only been a relatively short amount of time that's been happening. So
And here's a note to you. Here's a note to you listeners. If you know any Georgian comic or graphic novel creators out there, shout them out. Let us know, and we'll be happy to chat with them. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Or at least have them send. I mean, like we'll need
Or
a
send a copy. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We don't speak Georgian, unfortunately, but
and that was another weird thing. There is like it's all in like the Georgian alphabet, and so you really when you're walking around Tbilisi, you have no idea what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
No clues.
It's Cyrillic based, right?
It looks like it, but it's not. It's different.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Its own dialect, its own version.
Oh, that's right. It is. It's pure. Its own. That's true. Its own little vacuum, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
So, you know, I did want to first, before I have my own story to share, Matt, you shouted out some of them already, but if there's any more, what are your favorite wines from this shoot that you discovered? What are the ones that you would give a mention to?
I mean, the Paparis were excellent. I do, every time I drink one, I think about the hangover I had that second day.
Wine hangover, guys. It's not to be underrated. It should not be underestimated.
Yes, and he's saying it's
I had
worth
to
it.
work.
He's saying he had he had to work, he had a
100%
hangover, and it was worth it because he's still
Totally worth
shouting
it.
this wine out.
That's right.
Their wines were I honestly thought everything was wonderful. I think the Ardennuli I know does, at least when we film with them, I believe that they do have wines available in California, and I don't know elsewhere, but all of these Georgian wines are all organic wines, and so
Yes.
I know with the organic wine bar trends that they might be popping up a little bit more there. I thought that all of her wines were just the most drinkable wines. The Paparis were just big, bold reds that you really
Very traditional back in the day, like
which
thing
I
about
like. I like
tradition-
reds like that.
Me too. But the thing about back in the day is like we often romanticize the past, and like a lot of the times like natural and organic movements are about getting back to our roots. And it's like, well, yes and no, because traditional wine was made to be like, it was meant to knock you out on your ass. Like it was usually made with like, there's usually some sugar in there. They were big, they were bold, they were tannic. The technology and hygiene weren't what we have today. So there was a lot less mucking with the wine. That also meant like just leaving the skins in there for a long ass period of time. And so these wines would get very big, very bold, compared to how our ability to make elegant, delicate wines today.
Yeah, I mean, Iago's Petnat was also bomb. I mean, he had great. They all had great wines. The one that I don't remember enough of, and I haven't. I have a few bottles and I haven't cracked them. Is the Zangura ones? I know that they were also very good, but I think he had more of the ambers. Really, I think that's what we were drinking there.
Got it. Yeah.
Interesting.
It all blurs together after a little bit.
Yes,
That's kind of the point, actually. That's kind of the point.
I have another funny. I do have one other funny anecdote that I thought of. Is that we went to a wine bar in Tbilisi, and there was a tasting going on, and we're the only. Everyone else obviously is Georgian. We're the only people that are not Georgian in this place. And, our Georgian, like our fixer, our guide. Friend who was there, Gia, he knew the guy who was leading to the tasting. So we go, and they obviously have a raffle. And as a schmuck from New Jersey, you can't throw a raffle in front of me and not expect me to put in. And so anyways, my boss and I both won the raffles. So you have back-to-back Matt's winning the raffles. So I have a nice little like Georgian, little wine opener and stuff. But it was just like all the Georgians. You could tell all these people in the wine bar looking at us like, what the. Is this rigged?
Right.
These tourists are winning our.
You're just going to give the rare outsider all the wins. Great.
Well, what you guys missed. What you guys missed before you got there, Matt, was the entire room saying, "Let's just let the visitors win this one, guys."
Let's hope they leave happy.
I was going to say, if it's that rare of an occasion, they probably were just like, let's give them some stuff.
Yeah.
Let's give them some stuff to take
It'll
home.
be a good memory. It'll be a very good memory of Georgia, right?
Yeah, the locals can win this next week. It's all good.
That's right.
But
Awesome.
I would
So-
recommend if you can.
Yeah.
If you can go, do go.
Do go. And I will say for the listeners who want to try some of this wine, if you're here in the States, there is a distributor called Black Lamb, Lamb. And they have one of the Papari Saparavis that you can order from them. And they will distribute. They can't distribute to every state. It depends on the laws of the state. Some states don't allow a distributor to directly sell to a consumer. They have to go through a retail shop. But if you are in one of the states that allows it, they will ship it to you. And they have a lot of Georgian, Slovenian, Slovakian units, like all that area kind of wine. So you can mix and match and put together a nice little 6 bottles, 12 bottles, whatever's within your budget, but make it worth the shipping, because the shipping is going to be like at least $30-35, something like that. So, get at least 6 bottles in there and then have it send your way. But if you're in the States, you can get it via that. And otherwise, Georgian wine, it's getting more and more popular, but if you're in America, it's still a little hard to come by. They're not the most prevalent things yet. In Europe, they're a little more. I know they've gotten out to a lot of the wine regions and wine, like, into France, into Germany, into the Netherlands, into the UK. They talk about Georgian wine a lot more than we do. So obviously they have access to it a little bit more easily than we. But Black Lamb, look them up, Black Lamb and Wine, look that up online. And I'll have a link down below in the description of this episode to them as well, so people can check that out. And I also wanted to mention, so on the subject of what this documentary really covers, because it's about people being able to make wine the way they choose for the first time in a long time in this country, right? Because they used to be under Soviet control. And the documentary ends with a little bit of a cliffhanger, as the local Georgian government just passed a law that was very troubling, to say the least. And that was the tail end of last year that law was passed. So we're all kind of, we'll see where this goes. But certainly the subjects of the documentary were not very happy with what was happening. I doubt many of us would be either. I'm certainly not. But on the topic of that, just to remember, this region of the world really was the cradle of wine originally. It's where a lot of the wine came from, the first winemakers. I just watched this past weekend, and to tie this all back together, I watched the Psalm 4 doc, Cup of Salvation, which was released not too long ago. And what it covers is a story of the very first Iranian wine made in over 40 years. And that's because, of course, they're under a religious dictatorship right now that it's illegal to not just imbibe alcohol, but to make it. It's even illegal to grow grapes for the purpose of making alcohol elsewhere. You cannot do that at all. So basically it tackles these Armenian winemakers, and Armenia is yet another one of the Iran, Armenia. Armenia is in this really interesting place. They're sort of like in this pinwheel surrounded by other countries that make wine that include, there's Iran, there's Azerbaijan, and then Georgia up above. And I'm going to forget what's right over to the left, but it's 4 different countries there that surround them. And they have a lot of issues with their borders, and during the documentary there was a military action. There was a 6-week war that broke out right at harvest time, and they weren't sure if they could even harvest the grapes. The military had to give them permission to go do that because they're so close to where the fighting was. And this Armenian winemaker, this covered a father-daughter duo, Vahe Kushgarian and his daughter, and they do the Kush winery that does very traditional sparkling wines, and then the daughter, of course, kind of does her own thing in the Zulal brand wine. And these are wines you can find, at least in California. They're actually kind of out there. You can find them quite a bit. But the dad got it in his mind. He had mapped out all the indigenous grapes of the region and all the surrounding regions. And he discovered there were these indigenous grapes in Iran where he's like, they don't exist anywhere else, and they're wine grapes. And so he's like, I think I want to smuggle grapes out of Iran. And the documentary... Allegedly.
Yeah,
well, unfortunately, not allegedly. So I won't reveal. It's kind of a little bit of a cloak and daggery thriller of a documentary as he hatches this plan and goes to try to find these grapes and get them out of Iran. And the only thing I'll tell you, I won't tell you what it took, and I won't tell you if there were any consequences. Go watch the documentary Psalm 4. It's worth it. But the wine was made, and we know that because it's out. And it's out there. It was released not too long ago. There are still some bottles floating around for about $80 to $100 a bottle out there. They were able to make about 12,000 bottles. It was 15 tons of grapes they got their hands on. And they made a wine. It was made from a grape called Rasheh, Rasheh, from the Sardasht region. And I went to a get-together this weekend to watch the Som4, and one of my friends, my relationships, had one bottle of this thing, got their hands on it, and had the Iranian wine. And so we tasted it. We watched the documentary. It's unique. It's very much well worth it. But just about winemaking in these kinds of political environments where, Iran is currently in that, like, they have no choice. Nobody can make it. They could not even sell Armenians grapes just for them to go drink. That was highly illicit and illegal. So making an Iranian wine, and the documentary even ends, there were these expats from Iran that went to America and started their own winery in America, and they got to taste a bottle of it. The dad had, like, it'd been decades since he had ever tasted a wine, but he used to be a winemaker in Iran back when it was legal. And so if this is sort of the on the world stage, I wanted to share that story. I know that, again, go find, who knows if this wine will ever be made again and how long it will be before it's ever made again, because now the Iranian government knows that it was made, and it might not be as easy to make this happen a second time around. The Armenians are hopeful it will change the government's mind. I don't know how much historical precedent there is for things like that changing governments, especially highly religious dictatorship governments' minds, but hey, maybe. We'll see where this all goes, but that was sort of a sister story to go with this one. But folks, we will have a link down below directly to the YouTube to the short documentary version. The feature is still in the works, but it is once again called the Red Line Where Wine is Freedom. We'll have a link right down below, so you can click on that and go check out the YouTube short documentary feature that Matt directed. It's very much worth your while. The folks, the family, the winery the Papari winery that he chronicles in that short doc, great doc, wonderful people. It's very eye-opening. It's very informative. Highly recommend. It's 20-something minutes. You've got the time.
Is the family on any socials, Matt, that you know of?
They're on Instagram, I think. I don't think that they're super active.
Well, when you got a doc coming out, you may as well capitalize. So that's why I'm questioning.
I'm pretty sure they're on Instagram. I would say just go buy their wine and yell at your wine distributor to pick up to order it to carry it.
Yes.
Because I think they're. One thing I do remember is that they did mention that, like, Japan also seems to be a big big purchaser.
As Drops of God has informed us all about. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that show, Matt, or read the manga.
I have not. Is it good?
It's very good. It's 44 volumes, so go
tuck in. It's definitely you tuck in on this one. So.
You tuck in. Read one or two if it's not your thing. Okay. It doesn't really change. It's 44 volumes of that, like most manga is. So you can give it a try. But I do recommend also. It's a 10 episode. It's not really a series. It's a mini series because it's one season done. It's one and done. It's not. It's not going to be continued and it's on Apple TV. That one, though, the TV show, it's quite different from the manga, but I like them both. I think they're both very good.
All right.
So something worth doing. And by the way, folks, Milana is the name of the Iranian wine, Molana. So go find that, check that out. I'll try and have like a Google search link down below. You can click on that as well, so everyone can see if they can find a bottle near them. And Black Lamb is a distributor, so if you want to ask your retail or your wine shop if they can carry some more Georgian wine, especially this specific Georgian wine, they can order through Black Lamb as well. So you can just give them that information right there, and they can reach out to Black Lamb. I think they're mostly on the West Coast of the U.S. Black Lamb is, like, in terms of like being very active, but don't quote me on that. I do not know if that's actually the case. They might be everywhere in
they say that they're also US. Like New York based too.
Pretty New York based as well. Okay, perfect.
At least on the
all
site.
Right.
I mean, I'm being hopeful for myself.
I know. You're on the yeah.
That's right.
Well, we'll find out. I'll do a little research when I'm putting these links up down below. Yeah. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Matt. And thank you to our listeners for listening. Please, as always, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button. It does help this podcast grow and reach new listeners. And also, hey, reach new listeners, recommend this podcast to a friend or family member, anyone you think will like deep dives into movies, TV, books, comics, and or music, all matched with wine and wine education, because that is what we do here. And don't just follow this podcast. Also follow us on Substack. That is vintertainmentstudios.com. That's where you can find our Substack. And on the note of Georgian wines, and Georgia being the home place of orange wine and the people who brought orange wine back, we just announced on our Substack our very first wine and watch party. This is going to be an online watch party for a rare, out of print, you can't find it really anywhere, action stunt spectacular from 1987 called Mirage, or Mirage of Martial Arts. It was a mainland Chinese feature done by one of the Hong Kong Golden Age greats, Choi Su-ming. And this is a forgotten action spectacle. It has never been released on anything better than Laserdisc. And there are no film reels known to exist anymore of this movie. So that's as good as it gets. You can find it on the Internet Archive in a very compressed format with an English dub, but we are going to be streaming at this watch party a uncompressed version of the Laserdisc rip in the original Mandarin audio language with custom English subtitles for the whole thing. You cannot find that anywhere else. So you can register on our Substack, entertainmentstudios.com. Go check that out. Even if you can, and this is going to be Sunday, June 22nd at 11 a.m. PST, 2 p.m. EST, or 7 p.m. on Monday, London time, if you're in Europe. That might also work out for you in the evening on Monday as well. And I'm just going to say, I won't say any more than this, but I would register even if you're not sure you can make it, because there may just be a way for you to see this version of the movie after the fact if you register. Right. I'm just going to throw that out there. And don't forget, this movie does not exist in the world outside of these things. So this is going to be our first wine and watch party, and we are recommending you bring with you an orange wine to pair with this movie. The more robust, the better. We highly recommend finding a Georgian or Slovenian orange wine. Those can sometimes be the most robust, and they do the best with that robust version. But something that is just going to give you this takes place in the Mongolia, in sort of the steppes of Mongolia. So you want something that's going to give you that dusty desert feel of this landscape, and the robust, powerful body and flavor profile that's going to match the set pieces and the stunts that are going on display, and how much these actors and stunt people risk life and limb. This is one of those movies, I like to say, that you watch it and your first thought is, Jesus Christ, how many people died making this film? And you don't look it up because it would be too depressing. So you just let it go at that and you enjoy the film anyway. But fun fact, as far as I know, nobody died making this film. It just looks like a lot of people died making this film. So join us then. That will be about 2 Sundays from now, or 1 Sunday by the time this episode actually drops. But find us on entertainmentstudios.com and bring your best orange wine. Go to a wine shop, say, I want your strongest bodied orange wine. They will help you out there. They'll know what to do. And on that note, also, we have to sign off with shout outs to our producers. Get it right? Yeah. These are our top. I did work very hard on that. After this. These are our top paid subscribers on Substack. If you do that top tier, you get a shout out on every episode. So shout out to our first 3 producers: for Kate Rochelle, who you can find on survivesonwine.substack.com; Paul Kalmkiarian, who has his own wine podcast, Wine Talks with Paul K; and Jessica Mason, author and graphic novelist extraordinaire, who you can find on monsteroftheweek.substack.com. Yeah. We appreciate you all more than you can know. Check us out on entertainmentstudios.com. We will be back in 1 week with another wine and entertainment pairing for your entertainment. Ciao for now, and thank you for being with us,
guys.
And thank you for being with us, Matt.
Thank you, guys.
And Matt, your last name,
Yep.
is it Battaglia, or do you give it a hard G, Battaglia?
If you want to sound Italian, you can go soft G. If you want to be American about it, you can go hard G. I usually just say Battaglia, but I always appreciate when people go Battaglia.
Okay, beautiful. Well, we will announce you as Battaglia. The only reason I knew to even ask that is because there is an Italian wine grape Aglianico with an AG at the beginning, and I had to learn. And someone corrected me on that one day, and they're like, no, and the AG is like an al, so, an olive type sound.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, son of a bitch.
I was actually at the liquor store the other day, and they have a Battaglia wine. Like, it was a white, white wine. Yeah, and I was like, I'll buy it. It's okay.
Okay, it was okay. I'm like, is it any good? I feel like the fact that none of us have heard of it, I'm like,
I'd never seen it before. It was like, I don't know, maybe $15. It was a perfectly fine drinking outside in the, Pinot Grigio type of wine. Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm from New Jersey. We throw like a couple. I haven't broken the habit of throwing a couple cubes in a glass of white. Like, it's just.
Well,
That's
I was
Jersey
just commenting.
special. I think that's called the Jersey special. In fact.
Well, I was just talking to or commenting on another wine writer on Substack today, where he, like me, I bonded with this other wine writer because we don't like pairing wine with food. We like to drink our wine separate, then eat our food. Like, no mixing and matching or anything like that. And part of our thing about that is, in the same way that a lot of people frown on, like, don't put ice cubes in your wine or water in your wine, or don't sweeten your wine with sugar. And I'm like, but it's okay to take like a greasy seasoned piece of meat in your mouth with your wine. I'm like, how does that work? Like, what's the difference between those two? Either you're drinking the wine because it works on its own, or you're not. And after that, you can't get picky, man.